backstory. This past Sunday, thank you for the willingness to go there. This past Sunday, I was listening to a colleague on it was a low-priced offer. So that does tend to equate with the level people that show up to the event are at. And what I perceived within the group is she was running this clearing on choosing more of what lights you up. I found it was 2 Sundays ago. I found it horrifying, the level of density and resistance that I could perceive in the gathering of many people from around the world, where the thickness of resistance and even more so the unfamiliarity with being allowed to, having permission to actually choose what'll light them up. Like there was this invisible resistance that they had to move through, this fog-like thing. For those who were familiar with it, and others, I could just perceive it felt flat. So I'm not talking about procrastination.
Okay.
I'm talking about like giving yourself permission to choose what'll light you up. What do you know about that? Thanks for feeling that.
Well, so I guess maybe, so the thing that comes up for me to share in response to that is just, I think the best thing I can do is just relate to it personally, in the sense that there was, I can think back. I can think back to the time in my adult life where if someone, I don't know, you can get so attached to, how's the best way to say this? You're aware that there's another way to be, but you're so attached to how you are. It's kind of like when you're in a mood. One of the things, to circle, you did ask me about teachings. It's one of the things that I notice about those energization exercises, because they seem, physical and mechanical, but that's what they are, is to help us understand our energy, learn to become aware of our energy, because completely the idea of being an energy being, like we seem so solid, but we're not. The idea of being energetic beings is perceivable at different levels to different people, depending on kind of where you are and what your practices are. So, like, it takes, one thing I noticed about practicing those exercises for a few years is I don't find myself in moods in the same way. And the reason I'm bringing that up, or really just susceptible just to moods, because a mood is like, you're just kind of, it's like you get in a mood and then you have these, and then it's the energy of that kind of it's that downward pulling energy, and that results in thoughts that just kind of continue you in that. That's what a mood is. You just kind of keep staying there. And so with those exercises, when you're aware of your energy, is you can put energy into shifting out of that. And so whether you're in a mood or you're just in kind of this, like a rut, or you're just used to thinking the same thoughts over and over again, if someone presented, like thinking back to when I was susceptible to more moods, if I'm in a place where it's like, I remember being in a place where my prayers, it's like I was aware that I was pulling myself downward, right? And my prayer wasn't, please help, please shift me. It was, please help me want to shift.
Willingness.
Yeah, there was such a huge difference here, because I was so attached to being how I was, because it was so familiar and it just kept repeating itself. So it's like, look, I can't do this. I can't do this by myself right here. So I need some sort of grace, divine intervention to help me want. Not to help me do it, but just help me want to. Because as soon as I want to, then I can. Because it's desire. it's energy, and now I've shifted. But if I don't want to, if I'm just hanging out, and then if I'm in that place and someone presents me with a thought like, your inner peace is up to you. All the peace that you ever wanted is within you. The kingdom of God is within you. Someone presents you with that sort of truth. No matter how true it is, if you're in a place of just general resistance, then that's gonna, I just wonder if that's an aspect of the density that you felt, because it's a really heavy way to feel, a really heavy way to be.
So thank you for that exploration. It's interesting to me how you use energy. And I wonder about people's unfamiliarity with having the permission from themselves.
Yeah, that's what you asked about. Okay, go on.
To choose more of what will light them up, that leads to more joy, that leads to them having more of what they desire, genuinely desire, not as much like material things, but yeah, material comfort, a new spouse, not that somebody's like repeatedly changing spouses, a new partner, a new romantic partner, I should say. I have a client right now that's really focused on that. Like, we have that call that I named Open the Drawbridge call.
Okay.
On purpose to be like, let the door that you are able to lower, because you have the controls, lower, open that drawbridge so that you can see what it's like to actually live in this castle of your kingdom. And just the unfamiliarity people have with, like, even one of the prayers that I ask daily is, help me to have the courage to accept the answers to all my prayers.
Yeah.
And then, like, in my gratitude journal today, I wrote, I am so grateful for seeing more of my prayers being answered. And it was a genuine entry. It wasn't, So like learning to live, and then this even bleeds over. I could go off on another tangent, but this even bleeds over to, like, in the UK, they call it toxic positivity. And here, I think in the States, it's called spiritual bypassing. Like, just the yogic teachings, how there is turiya, like bliss, and how to get to that state of living in that bliss. And like just the conditioning of the overall societal set point vibrationally is, what if there's a problem? What's wrong here? Drama and trauma, like the unfamiliarity with lightness. And I'm not saying choose what'll make you feel lighter. I'm saying choose what'll light you up. Like that level of innocence, even childlike wonders, or all of our inner child's like just so suppressed. I mean, like, what is going on? Now, of course, I wrote that first book of mine, What If There's Nothing Wrong? So, I have awarenesses here, that, about this, but just the point that we're at, it feels like in the 2012 to 2032 window, like we've rounded a corner in this year, the Chinese year of the fire horse. And we're at a new stage. The cleansing and purging peaked. There's still some happening, God knows, of, where there's abuses of power or lies are being told, etc. But we're really in the creation phase and learning how to live at this higher level.
Well, so I was rereading. I went back to one of my it's Raja Yoga, my Raja Yoga book.
Yeah.
And I was reading, and I started reading some things, and this is about the postures, about the yoga postures. And so the reason I'm bringing this up is, I was just reading this beautiful, like perfect, gentle introduction. We dabbled with this a little bit the last time we talked, just about going into those yoga postures, with the body that you have, trusting where you are and who you are, not comparing yourself to anyone else, but who you were yesterday. Yeah, the whole Instagram thing. But like really celebrating, like, did I So I'm sitting on the floor. My legs are straight out in front of me. My toes are pointed toward the ceiling. My first two fingers are wrapped around my toes, and I'm starting to forward bend. Am I forward bending a millimeter more today than I did yesterday? Holy smokes. And can I totally celebrate that? And without any hesitation whatsoever, without any need to that it should be further nothing, I can just totally celebrate those micro changes. And if I can, the reason I'm bringing this up is because what you're referring to, as far as like what lights you up, if I'm at a place where I'm just basically just tolerating my life, like my definition of happiness is that I'm not miserable. So
Jesus.
Right? So if I'm at a place, definition of happiness.
I'm sorry, I need a moment to just recover from that.
Right.
What you just said, what I just heard you say, my definition of happiness is
right. If I'm at a place in my consciousness where my definition of happiness is that I'm not totally miserable, there's nothing physically wrong with my body. There's nothing like generally I can pay the bills. There's nothing. It's kind of like that idea of like like when you're in, I forget where this teaching was from. This was way back in the day. It might actually have been back when I heard like Eckhart Tolle talking about this, where it was like, it's like you're pinching yourself, and you're pinching yourself really hard. This wasn't exactly what he said. This was many years ago that I read this or heard him talk about this, so forgive me, but it's not exactly right. But you're like pinching yourself really hard, and then you let go, and like that. So now you're no longer in pain, and like so that relief is happiness, right? So if I'm at that place where like that's my definition, then what you're talking about, what really lights me up, that true divine inner joy that is not dependent on circumstances or conditions being to my preference, that just what lights me up, and having the permission and the energy and the power and the drive to go after what really lights me up, that is eons away from this one little step that I have to make from where I am. Like I can't step from, if that's my definition of happiness, of that, just, I'm no longer in pain.
I'm no longer miserable.
Right. Yeah. I don't know that I can, with that analogy of like micro improvements, it's like there's a lot of steps and a lot of beautiful steps, and I would offer necessary steps to move your consciousness from that place to what you're talking about.
Okay, so what you've just said is in order to choose what lights you up, you have to be already in a joyous state, or you already have to have a level of familiarity with lightness.
Interesting.
And then I was talking about the overall...
Interesting that's what you heard me say. Like,
what'd you say?
I said, that's interesting that's what you heard me say. Continue.
Well, and that most directly answers my question that I asked, yeah? Because, I mean, remember, a little cat just ran by. What I started out with, prefacing it with, was that this was a very low-level investment. So so that speaks to the level of attendees for the most part, right? For the most part.
Maybe.
That's kind of... Yeah, it's a little different nowadays, but it wasn't a financial threshold where the people already had to have had some level of success gained in their life. So they had to have some level of empowerment, unless it was inherited success from like the family lineage. So it wasn't a financial investment at that level of self-actualization required. So it wasn't a couple of grand or 10 grand or 20 grand. It was like 22 for a month, right? So that requires that flags and calls to a different level of commitment. And that's really what I'm getting at, investment, commitment. So in that level of investment or commitment, the majority there was such a thickness of unfamiliarity with choosing what lights them up. And so what I'm also hearing you talk about in the micro movements, micro shifts, I talk about this all the time. It's momentum. And I remember when I was dating a guy in Taiwan, and he started to have some misperceptions about what I meant, which was easy because it was a Taiwanese guy and there were cultural differences and there was an age difference. And I remember saying to him, like, oh no, I saw I saw like the beginning of him starting to have one misperception piled on top of another one that started to be inaccurate and started to potentially create a momentum that then much more easily becomes entrenched. And so I was cautioning him right at the beginning, oh no, be careful here because that's not accurate and it's going to create a momentum. Don't let it create a momentum. Don't let it become habit. And it did, and it tore us apart. So I'm very much aware of the momentum that is required when people are working with subtle energy. I mean, it's a major premise of my vibration upgrade system and what the combination is between what I've learned from all the decades of meditation and all the decades in energy medicine, right? So I can do clearings for you, but we have to get you to the point where we're creating new neurological pathways and your magnetism, your pull is more towards the new and less towards down the old roots, right? So working with neuroplasticity in action. And so it's momentum, and momentum is so key in catching things before they become a momentum, or intentionally, the higher version, creating a momentum towards what it is that you desire. And I don't mean things. I mean, what do you desire to feel? So, yeah. I find myself a little defeated in a way, like looking at, and when have you ever heard me say that?
But you're allowed to be human. You're allowed to feel defeated. So continue. I'm interested.
Well, I find myself a little bit defeated, like just seeing like how much there is the accumulation of conditioning, of past life choices, past life experiences, upbringing, conditioning, imprinting from parents, karma, like just how much pulls in. This is like all the nature of what shows up in the ego mind, pulls people towards focusing on the lower vibration. And I don't know if it's right now in part the geopolitical situation across the planet. So, the echo of war, another war is more helping this predisposition and momentum towards the density and the heaviness. But just the unfamiliarity with having permission to choose what lights you up, or another way to say this is the unfamiliarity with not having to suffer.
Mm-hmm.
It's heartbreaking.
Yeah. Yeah. Which of these thoughts do I want to bring? Which of these thoughts do I want to put words to? Because what you're referring to, we remember that story. Just I don't know if it was last time or the time before about the two guys who were going at it in the car, yelling at each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Road rage in action.
Yeah, and just my sense of just, is that really how you want to be? Is in that sense of compassion, and so I'm relating right now to that sense of that sadness that I mean, but we can apply that to human suffering, across the across the board. It is when I just, because we can feel for people, right, and that is, but we don't help them by crawling in the ditch with them by any means. So so there's that that empathy and compassion, and at the same time, it is true that like if I was to go and spend all of my time with those two guys, and let's just make up a whole story that they're always, of course, they're not always like that, but they're always, operating out of, if I was to go spend my time, go drink beer with them or something like that, and then like I would it would take a tremendous amount of my own energy to not slowly but surely be at that level also, or at least feel that downward pull. So this is where so that's that's a fairly a significant example. But on the other side of that is like just like part of the reason why I do a meditation group is so that, like, selfishly, personally, I can be around people who are interested in what I'm interested in. That's that satsang.
Sure.
That's so important, to be
Creating
in the
community.
company of fellow truth seekers, right?
Satsang.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that we think that, I mean, once, I don't know, for me, it's like once you have been practicing for a little while, for a certain amount of time, you feel like, I don't know, you can get a false sense of, remember I told you about that teaching from Yogananda about how environment is more important than willpower, which is a significant thing to say based
It
on
really is.
how.
And he's not the only one saying it, by the way. I've seen it in other locations too. So it's rising.
Well, my offer, I don't know. Anyway,
environment is more important than
willpower. Yeah, that is a teaching. And so, but we can start to forget that. And, so, and think that, I won't be affected, that I can shield myself always from that. And so if you are feeling defeated, in order to, in that sense, it's like, well, tomorrow, get yourself on a call with some people, who are, who are not there, because I don't think that, it's just, I mean, this is part of humanity. I mean, suffering is just always here at some level,
yeah, and I'm here to shake that up.
Yeah, but it's
and so these times we're living in, but people's acceptance, it's so much easier to accept the negative than it is the light. They trust the negativity more. They trust the heavier, denser aspects of life more than like rainbows and unicorns. There's cynicism, or that's a childlike, or it's not sophisticated enough. It's not complex enough, which is one of the preferences of the intellect, which is the ego mind. If it's not complex, it's not worthy.
Well, yeah, we've been going that route for a long time, and it's wonderful. I remember a few chats ago, you were,
you and I have been going that route, or because society, momentum.
Humanity has been going that intellectual, that intellectual and overly intellectual route, and that overly scientific route for, a really long time. But it's part of, I mean, speaking of Yogananda, part of his coming to America was, I mean, it was time. We are ready to receive and understand those ancient teachings. Just that marries all of it. It doesn't dismiss the intellect by any means, but it brings the wisdom
into perspective.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
I'm good.
I want to go in this direction because you talked about it with what you're talking about. Environment is more important than willpower, and I noticed
for your personal spiritual development, your personal spiritual growth, and the uplifting of your consciousness. To be clear, that's what we're talking about.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I was saying this a couple of Magic Manifestation Money Flow program calls ago, where I had this awareness, and this is me being a bit vulnerable here, where in the beginning days of working that program, it's in its 10th year birthday this year, and I remember doing clearings and activations to bring in surprise money, for example, and to bring in unexpected money. And people would have it happen. Like a mother joined and she got a surprise check the first week, her daughter the second week. Another woman, surprise customer, whose first customer in months after she joined came in and spent enough to cover the first payment of the payment plan. another woman, she's an at-home accountant in the Caribbean. Husband comes home with 2 checks from clients who owed her without her having sent a reminder, left and right. Like, they're on my website too. And I realized that what I had been doing over the years, I had become less inviting on behalf of the people working with me to the quantum field surprising us with sudden, without logic or reason, but as if out of the blue, something great shows up. Because I had worked with so many people's consciousnesses by that point, where they needed the new conditioning towards the new momentum of being able to have their prayers answered as a summation point. And so I saw that my expectations, my willingness to call down that kind of lightness had changed or shifted to meet people more where they were at, which over time made me spend less time invoking in the as if by magic things to show up. And less people were telling me about the results, even though they were getting them. They weren't telling me about them as much as the people talking about what they wanted and needed. That was more about their suffering. So on this call, I spoke out about this, and then I invoked a clearing and activation to have more surprise money show up. And people did, including myself, by the way. So it's like, again, I'm talking about like what I've seen in people's consciousness, the gearing towards that momentum of what we've been talking about this whole time. So it hurt. I mean, I have the resilience to not be demoralized by the people I'm working with, typically. But what I'm talking about is an overtime conditioning of what the people were willing to receive. And then my guidance, my intuition pointed it out to me, my higher self, however you want to say that. Mm-hmm. Hey, Alison, remember this version of playing with the quantum field and bringing in other manifestations as opposed to focused on you serving the people put in front of you at the level they're at? Go higher, play again with these sudden quantum leaps. So where I'm coming from is this perspective is when I say it's heartbreaking, I mean, there's the part of me that is so naturally in service to humanity, and more specifically, the people who are working with me. And there's like this nature in me that knows I'm here for these times and knows that this is my mission. And just feels like no matter what, now I'm not going to sit here and enlist things that have caused me suffering as if to prove I also too have been through suffering. And I haven't just been this light butterfly, perfect life person, like is sometimes required. It feels like I'm going to avoid that. I'm going to not do that. And I'm going to just say that, like, my mission being to help in the way that I can help in my corner of the world, across the world, my corner of vibration, I guess I should say, to help humanity through this most intense evolutionary leap ever for humanity. And I guess I just want to, my heart goes out to such deep conditioning to focusing on what's wrong, focusing on problem solving. In the predictive component of the ego mind that causes people to procrastinate. Like you go to the big picture and it becomes overwhelming, or you predict, like subconsciously because of some kind of density from a past life experience. If I step out and I'm seen, I'm going to become a target and get punished somehow. Like all the different things that cause people to just stay where they're at and accept that this is all that life has to offer, as if they're not here creating it and choosing what shows up. Mm-hmm. Which is a whole nother thing about not deferring to the authority figure. It's an amazing time right now.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there.
You choose.
Well, no, we have time to do maybe just half of one of them. I did I remember when I was doing my a spiritual counseling course, and we were talking about like when there's another person on the other side of the of the conversation, and maybe they're having some questions or having some challenges in their life that if I was to personalize them would make me uncomfortable. And so there was this affirmation about I will go forth in perfect faith in the power of omnipresent good to bring me what I need at the time that I need it. And apply that to this person who's in front of me, in the sense that clearly this person is not here by any sort of accident. I'm here to serve them, but in my serving them, there's something here for me to grow and learn from as well. And so that combining that with this idea of making it's another thing that I was talking about recently, just kind of making a big thing small, because what you're talking about, and I think what you've been talking about throughout this conversation, is a really big thing. As far as like basically the entire consciousness of all humanity, right?
It's the biggest level, yeah.
Right. So what I'm trying to get at, and I think I think we might have to let's pick this up next time, is where I'm going, just in this moment of like wanting to be helpful, of service to you, my sister, like from what you're so wonderfully trusting me to, share right now, is
in this vulnerable positioning. Thank you.
I'm just like, so just giving yourself a chance to just serve the person. If you're serving your clients and those folks who are working with you, to really give yourself permission to just tune into that one person, and what is it that can be of service right now? How can I be who I am in service to this one person without
David? I don't have difficulty doing that.
Well, but this whole time you've been, so where I'm going is you've been talking about a big thing. And what I'm talking about is maybe it would be of service to you to spend less time in that such a big thing, and give yourself space to.
Well, these are just awarenesses that I've had from looking at the collective, right? Because a part of my work is to work on the collective. The Dragon Master level I certify in is to help my practitioners, but practitioners learn how to work in at the collective level. Mm-hmm. So, but it helps me actually when I have somebody in front of me, because I better understand what's happening collectively and can help them parse out where it's not personalized to them, or it's not even the ego mind, but it's what's going on in the collective unconsciousness at that time. So it helps them have more distance from some of what has been causing them suffering. So I'm okay there. I guess I'm just like asking to just be able to express. Thank you for wanting to help. But just help you know your sister better and express this real essential part of me, which is like who I am. It's to look at. That's why I'm, I didn't just grow in the town I grew up in, for example, right? It's big. So look at you. I mean, all the progress you've made, who you've become. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, man. More of that, please.
It has taken, and there's a lot, there's lifetimes to go, but I'm just saying, this wasn't overnight, right? I mean, like this version of me is like, it's like version, 11.352, but version 7 didn't look anything like this.
But he was starting the momentum.
Well, yeah.
Towards 11.352.
All right, we gotta go. I love you very much. Thank you for all of this. This is different. Cool. Thank you. I love you very much.
You asked for it, mate. Hey.
All right.
I love you too.
Okay. Bye.